Welcome back. This is Kivumbi 2017. We are the official election station, the only 24-hour news station. And we have stayed with the story, of course, to let you know what has been happening after Kenyans went to the poll, to the vote on Tuesday. Of course, the IEBC have declared their results for all elective positions, bar a few, like Kitutu Church South, who are yet to conduct the elections. But we're just taking a look at taking stock, especially at the presidential level. Where did Jubilee win this election? Where did NASA lose this election? And we are having a very interesting conversation here. And this must be you have a burning issue.
Yes, a burning issue, as always. Now, actually, the major winner in this election is the Kenyan who is interested in a new leadership. You know, every election is supposed to be a celebration of new ideas, fresh ideas coming to the fore. Now, since independence, Kenya has had two centers of power. Effectively, one anchored on the Jomo Kenyatta family, and another one anchored on the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga family. So for you to become a president or a leader, right from being a councillor all the way to the top, you must anchor yourself in one of these families. If you don't, then you'll be bleeding away. And there are many examples. In Luo Nyanza, if you don't anchor yourself around the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga family, you're going to lose an election. If you speak to Raphael Tuju, he confirms that. If you speak to Professor Nyang' Nyong'o and James Orengo, when they tried to run on their own, they were beaten into a pulp. But when they came back to the family, they were able to retain their seats. For this election, which has just ended, James Orengo did not need to do a campaign. Understand he didn't even come up with a poster. I even understand when the returning officer was looking for the winner for the senatorial seat, he was not around to be given the certificate. So somebody had to be told to go and look for him. So effectively, this election has brought to...
Is this a thing of the past now?
Yeah, it's brought an end that dynasty kind of political system. You remember in Shakespeare, the Montagues and the Capulets. So this one has come to an end, meaning that in 2022, if you're a Kenyan politician, you do not need to be loyal to either of those families to succeed. Right now, if you speak to a number of members of parliament or leaders from Luo Nyanza, they may not say it in the open, but a number of them are dancing on Raila's grave. They're very happy saying that this has happened because it's a stronghold on the political space will come to an abrupt end. And the same is happening in central Kenya. And believe you me, as soon as the president is sworn in, 2 years later, the kind of influence he has in central Kenya is unlikely to be the same. You'll have now many centers of power coming, and this is very good for democracy. Because a strong nation like Kenya, we are not supposed to be held hostage by two powerful politicians. It's supposed to be spread all over, so that if you're a man of very good ideas, I'm hoping that we're going to get somebody like Barack Obama in Kenya. If you're a man of good ideas, you can spring from nowhere and go to the top.
All right.
And then number two, not yet finalized. Now the winners, Gideon Moi is a clear winner because the machinery deployed by Jubilee to take Gideon home was overwhelming, but he was able to sustain it. And I'm very happy for one of your colleagues here, Enoch Wambua, who's the new senator for Kitui. I'm very happy for Sakaja and for Hassan Omar. Now, Sakaja and Hassan Omar for different reasons. But for Wambua, because of his intellectual capacity, in as much as the people of the Kamba Nation are beginning to start shedding tears, they don't know who is going to be the next king. Enoch Wambua offers that kind of intellectual leadership, and he can easily bring together the Kamba Nation. So, so that one is a very clear winner.
Husband.
Yes.
The winners, losers.
I want to agree with Dismas that, in a sense, there is a way in which you realize that the Kenyan electorate is a big winner in this election. The fact that there are so many parties that have won different seats, you know, at the parliamentary, senatorial, and gubernatorial level, and the idea of the six-piece suit has not worked in many areas, is a clear indication that the Kenyan electorate is becoming more and more conscious, and they are not voting people who are from the same ideology, but they are voting people on the basis of what their manifesto and their ideals are going to do for them, you know, which is a good thing. So you can't say that Kalonzo has lost in Ukambani because of the many inroads that other parties have made. You can only appreciate the people of Ukambani for making that realization. And to the extent that these guys have won, you appreciate that they've won. But then among the principals, I actually don't see any principal who was lost per se, because I want to say that most of them actually worked. Most of them worked themselves and pulled, you know, votes to the expectation from where I sit. You look at Kalonzo, I mean, at the presidential level, he did well. You look at Mudavadi, consolidated Western Province. You look at Wetangula, at least there's something he brought on the table, in as much as Jubilee took his home turf, Sirisia. You know, constituency. But then if you look at all this and the fact that they are probably all winners, you may want to identify one person who actually outdid himself. And to me, this election is actually won on the basis of what the deputy president did. You look at areas where the deputy president camped. Look at Bungoma, for instance. Look at Trans Nzoia. Towards the end of the campaign period, I think he literally camped there. And we can actually see that whatever he did, you know, bore a lot of fruits for the vote that the president got. Now, look at what he did in Kisii, you know, and Nyamira. Again, it is the efforts of the deputy president. In as much as, you know, there are a number of other people who are playing, you know, behind the scene, you know, mobilizing people in town hall meetings, and there are few of them, you know, who made it happen. Immediately they did, you had the principals do their official big campaigns. Jubilee had the infrastructure to penetrate the grassroots, which I think NASA did not have. And credit to the deputy president. Then you come to the 3 counties of Narok, Kajiado, and Bomet, and you realize that he actually outwitted even himself. You know, Bomet, for instance, I think the expectation, just like Avemba said, was to, you know, galvanize the presidential vote. And, you know, if anything, they didn't have a problem with Isaac Ruto winning. And I think it's a shocker for almost everyone that, one, they sent Isaac Ruto home. And then secondly, they actually retained the vote to the latter in Bomet. And then you look at the inroads that Chama cha Mashinani was making in Masailand, and you realize that it was a big threat, you know, to the incumbent president. But then it didn't work. And again, credit to the efforts of the deputy president. He camped in Kajiado County. We have Olelenku, and then we also see that the number of votes that Uhuru got actually made it a bit safe for them to say that we've not lost any ground in Bomet to NASA. And the same thing happened in Narok. I think to a large extent, again, his inroads and what he did in Narok made a big difference for Jubilee. And I want to say that a lot of credit must go to him. But the other thing that he may want to be alive to is the fact that, you know, once you emerge as the front runner for the next general election, then it becomes very easy for guys to start targeting how to bring you down. And I want to hope that he's working towards, you know, consolidating his power base as he soldiers on to 2022.
All right. Some of the other winners, as we continue to wind up the show, time has flown. It's almost time. Is the women leaders that have been elected into both houses of parliament, the Senate and the National Assembly, and of course the 3 first women governors. And some of there are 2 senators. Remember, we didn't have any senator elected from the 2013 elections. We have Fatma Adandulo, Senator-elect Isiolo, and Professor Margaret Kamaru is a Senator-elect Uasin Gishu. We also have a total of 23 members of the National Assembly so far who have been elected and are women, including the first ever woman to be elected into Parliament in northeastern Kenya. That is Sophia Abdinuro Vijara. We have Grace Jelagat, Baringo South, Beatrice Cherono Kones. That is Bomet East. Remember that battle between mother and son. She finally won it. Eva Kinyo Bara, Kabondo Kasipul, beating an incumbent there. Lillian Gogo, MP for Rango, again beating an incumbent in the county of Homa Bay, which has a lot of women in parliament. Millie Odhiambo, Suba North, Peris Tobiko, Kajiado East, Anne Wanjiko Kibe, former journalist, Gatundu North, Aisha Jumwa, member elect for Malindi, Rachel Kinyamai, that is my member of parliament. By the way, Kitui South has never re-elected a member of parliament since 1983, before I was born. But that has happened for the first time. Sarah Paulata Kobere, Laikipia North, Jessica Mbalu, Kibwezi East, Mishimboko, of course, Likoni in Mombasa County, Alice Wahome retained her Kandara seat, Ruth Moniki Kigumo, Mary Wanjoroge, MP for Maragua, Masi Gakuya Kasarani in Nairobi, Martha Wangari, former nominated senator, member-elect for Gilgil, Jane Kihara, in Naivasha, Charity Chepkwani in Njoro, former journalist again, Isula Lesuda, member of parliament-elect for Samburu West, Naomi Shaban, Taita Ataveta, and Janet JCTNA, member for Tarbo, who beat the legendary Okwara. But in terms of the gubernatorial, that has been, of course, the other big one. We have the 3 first women to be elected into to be governors of counties, starting with the county of Kitui. Again, my county, very progressive. Electing Charity Kaluki Ngilu, former member of parliament, former cabinet secretary, won with 163,267 votes. Age 65, beating Musila, the former Kitui, the outgoing Kitui Senator David Musila, and the incumbent governor Dr. Julius Malombe. And then, of course, we have the county of Kirinyaga. Anne Mumbi Waiguru did beat the incumbent, as well as Martha Karua, who was the second. Anne Waiguru garnered 159,606 votes to become another of those first women to be elected into the position of governor. And of course, we had the county of Bomet, where the deputy speaker of outgoing member of parliament for Sotik, Joyce Laboso, did emerge victorious, beating the incumbent and former chairman of the Council of Governors and NASA principal Isaac Ruto, garnering 175,932 votes, more than 60% of the votes in the county of Bomet. One of the big stories of this election, of course, there. Prof, what do you say about the women in this election and how they've performed?
First, I wish to congratulate them. If you look at the three that have been elected governor, those are heavyweights by any description. As individuals, they have done very well in their lives. As politicians, they have done very well. And in this election, they have also done very well. Now, secondly, it looks like Kenya is beginning to weave itself out of the traditional mold that women are restricted to the kitchen. The electorate are no longer thinking about the kitchen. These women serve as role models for the young who are aspiring to become professionals, to become successful public servants. At the same time, I think it's important that our constitution enabled us to facilitate, as long as you are able to hold your ground, develop your agenda, and compete out there in the open with whoever is thrown at you, we are able to get results. So from a perspective of assessment, these women are even material for presidential competition down the road. Right. They're the ones that have won those seats. I want to say something in addition to this whole thing. In relation to what we have seen elected, people who are elected and those who have lost, the one thing that is essential that must be undertaken immediately is cleaning up of the electoral process. Cleaning up of the electoral process so that it is not, there are no opportunities for blatant manipulation or claims of manipulation. You know, if you do not clean it up, trust me, you will always be even complaining about losing an election when there is no real evidence that you have lost an election unfairly. All right. Finally, I want to say this. When it comes to elections, it's extremely important to say so-and-so lost, so-and-so won. Yes, you won in the ballot box, but a lot of these people never seem to win in their workplace. All right. When they go to their workplace, they fall back to those old working bad manners. For example, for me, if whoever has won can minimize the level of corruption in their place of work, the citizen will have won. Because the key thing here, we tend to focus too much on the individuals. The ordinary person whose quality of life is supposed to improve, all right, nothing happens.
All right, Hesbon, yes, in 1 minute only, what's your take on this and the performance of the women candidates in this election?
I think it's encouraging, first of all, to have 3 women governors. I'm a big fan of Charity Ngilu, and it's refreshing, you know, to have women of her caliber ascend to such positions. It's also interesting to note that in as much as these women have won, I don't think they've met the constitutional threshold of 1/3 majority, and therefore it's a question of what exactly are these women going to do in their positions to ensure that going forward there is a lot of women who get into politics so that we meet the constitutional requirement of 2/3 majority.
All right. Mutinda?
Yeah, thank you very much for that point so that I don't have to repeat it. That it's a good move now that we are actually yet to meet the constitutional threshold. And it happened even at the county level. In the last election, the Jubilee side only had one elected MCA, that is Kariakozi, one Millicent Mugadi. The one who was in the Big Brother in South Africa at some point. But now we have three. We have Waiguru Shege in South B, and we also have Patricia Mudeu Musiemi in Mlango Kubwa. So this really looks like women overdid themselves, but like Esbon has correctly put it, they need to push further to ensure that the constitutional threshold of 1/3 in the elective bodies is met. And I want to say something finally, if you allow me, about what you were talking about, because you cut me short before I finished, the issue of losers and winners. There is a very interesting scenario that has come up in Cumberland. There are 4 centers of power without counting Kalonzo, because all these people are very strong individuals in their own right, and they are not known to be loyalists. Like I told you, the only Wiper candidate there in Cumberland is, sorry, I forgot to talk about Sonko. That's why I'm counting 4. Sonko has won the Nairobi governorship and is a Kamba, meaning that going forward, he's going to be a key player in the politics of the region. Now, of these 4, 2 are probably knocked out by age. In terms of threatening Kalonzo, they are almost age mates. They are in their 60s. That is Prof. Kivuda and Charity Ngilu. So we remain with Governor Mutua and Mike Sonko going forward as the youthful Kamba leaders who probably are going to be competing to occupy that space. Then the issue of the campaigns. You know, the Jubilee first made sacrifices. They sacrificed TNA, that was Uhuru Kenyatta, and His Excellency Ruto sacrificed URP. And they formed one party called Jubilee, and it clearly has paid. On the other side, they wanted to remain with their political party fiefdoms, yet they still want to form government. Clearly, that cost them very much. And again, they conducted some element of divisive politics. And I want to give 2 examples. One was a statement made by the former Prime Minister in Kajiado that ata hao wako na kwao, si wakae huko. Of course, that was subtle, but we knew whom they were referring to. During the last rally at Uhuru Park, former Vice President Kalonzo says that the Mount Kenya will have to lie low and see how the rest of the country runs government. That clearly backfired, as opposed to Jubilee, who had a very youth-friendly campaign. Actually, if you ask me, the people who made the difference in 2017 for Jubilee as compared to 2013 was the youth, the young people voters, because Jubilee clearly made sure they packaged themselves as a youth-friendly team. And you know, those youth are not the people you will do this divisive politics, because those historical hangovers that bring that kind of politics, they don't belong to that. For them, that's why they went to Jubilee.
This must give
those
me
are my final remarks.
Thanks. No, we have one final question, but before we do that, 1 minute on the women leaders.
Well, for me, when you look at the election of the 3 governors, Charity Ngilu, Laboso, and one Waiguru, it puts forward a very strong case for us to do away with affirmative action. Because the 3 ladies won the gubernatorial positions, not because they are women, but because they understood the needs of their voters, and they offered solutions, and they did aggressive campaigns. So the idea of saying that women need to be given special seats because they're women, you'll actually be abusing the winning abilities or capabilities of the 3 ladies who won the gubernatorial position. So maybe at a later stage, we need to see whether or not we need those 47 seats. And then number 2, for us to expect growth in our political system, as Professor has indicated, we need to clean our electoral system so that it's very easy, if you've lost, to give a concession speech. And maybe at this stage we invite IBC to allow a forensic audit to be done now, so that in future it's a best practice. If you're running for a political office, you prepare 2 speeches, so that when IBC declares a winner, there's no doubt in anybody's mind that you've actually won and you've lost, unlike the misty situation we find ourselves in.
My final question, and I'll give each of you 1.5 minutes only, and it's a 3-pronged question. First of all, was Raila Odinga the right candidate for NASA? And is Raila Odinga the president that Kenya never had? And what do you see in this final term of President Uhuru Kenyatta? 1.5 minutes.
1.5 minutes, 30 seconds each. Eh?
Yes.
Now, first thing is, for NASA, Raila was the right candidate because he had numbers which the others didn't have. Number two, what was the second one?
Raila Odinga, is he the president? Is this it for him?
You know, this belief that you must be president to make a substantive contribution towards the evolution of the history of the country, this is an old-fashioned view. In my view, Raila has made a tremendous contribution for this country to be where they are. Right now, Raila is the largest individual political player in the country. He, on his own, is able to cause anger and happiness in equal measure. And the country sort of goes the direction he has suggested it should go. And finally,
President Uhuru Kenyatta.
President Uhuru Kenyatta, in my view, he has a challenge in his hands that he must transform into greater unity for Kenyans and not a continuation of those bad manners of his first term. These bad manners whereby there is a challenge and he stands up and says, Sijui, Sioni, you know, those sort of things. When you are head of state, for better or for worse, you must make a decision which defines you as being different from those ones who did not ascend to the seat.
Thank you, Prof. Hesbon?
Yeah, I want to say that Raila Odinga was the right candidate for NASA, not because he's popular or he has worked, but I think it is because he had earned that. He had everything, you know, to make an onslaught on the Jubilee government. I also believe that Kalonzo Musyoka was the right running mate, given that they lost the last general election by a smaller margin, and they had very little to do to win this election. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for them. There is no other person who would have made such a fight that Raila made. Then the second question was, is Raila the president that Kenya will never have? I want to say, yeah, he has earned that part, and I don't think he has to be the president. I think the contributions that the Right Honorable Raila Odinga has made to this country cannot be gainsaid. I mean, since I gained consciousness of what was going on around me, I found Raila fighting for the rights of all Kenyans when there was very little to gain. So to that extent, I think he holds a very special place in the history of this country. And the onus now is on President Uhuru Kenyatta, knowing that this is somebody who has contributed immensely to the democratic space that we have today, to give him the honor that he deserves. You know, the honors the belief in many Kenyans is that even if he's not the president, is it possible to have a situation where he's a key player in bringing this country together? And I think that is something that the president has already demonstrated he's willing to do. I want to pray that he will go ahead and do it. Then the last question was, what next for President Uhuru Kenyatta? I think for President Uhuru Kenyatta, it's always said that you've not won an election until you win the next election. Right now, there is no next election for him. And I want to believe that it is now in his mind that he needs to make Kenyans who believed in the Jubilee Manifesto realize everything that Jubilee promised. And to a large extent, that would basically be speaking to the legacy he wants to leave.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, was he the right candidate? Personally, I think not. And, you know, the right candidate is the one who stands a better chance of winning. The truth of the matter is that within NASA, the person who had the biggest support base is Raila. But there are two things about Honorable Raila. One is very polarizing. There are sections of this country that really can't think of him being the commander-in-chief. And that is not true of all the principals in NASA. So probably they should have gotten a less polarizing person. And I want to talk of Mudavadi, and I'll give reasons why. You know, the Luhya...
You'll finish your...
Yes, the Luhya also are very... The Luhya are also very... have a very big chunk of their people who are behind NASA. But in this arrangement, and I've said it again in this show, the sense of ownership, the sense of belonging in NASA for the Luhya was a bit wanting, because their principals, one was a campaign manager, the other one was vying for senator in Bungoma. And I think I've been vindicated on that view by the way they voted. The percentage points that His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta got in Western as compared to last time were much more, you know, high than last time. And this means, like I was saying, Raila has the ability to lock his vote. For instance, the Luo vote. He can confidently lock it and pass it on to
somebody else,
like he did with Kibaki, and like probably would have done with Mudavadi. But that is not true of Mudavadi of Wetangula.
Is he the president we never had?
When it comes to lock in their vote. About the president, the thing is this. Raila's role in the political development of this country is he has earned his place in our history. And any objective Kenyan would be respectful of him. Like my fellow panelists has correctly reported, he's the son of a former vice president, so he's from a privileged background. But the kind of sacrifices he made to ensure that we have proper governance here, it was not fashionable that time. It was actually very risky, and it earned him very prime time in detention of his life. And for that, we need to really give it to him, because at that time, politics was not as fashionable as it is now.
All right.
Like when we have the new constitution, then it was very risky.
The time is up.
Not to be in good books with the powers that be. So for that, whether he becomes the president or not, his role in the political development of this country is there for history to note.
President Uhuru Kenyatta, 15 seconds.
What about President Uhuru Kenyatta?
What do you expect for this last term?
Of course, the president is doing his last term. So first, I expect him to move towards, and he said it, reaching out to the areas that didn't vote for him, trying to have a more united country, trying to make those who voted for the opposition have a sense of belonging, that this government is for everybody and not only for those who voted for him.
All
And
right.
I think in the 5 years he's been there, he's tried to do quite some things to show that, and I believe that will be more enhanced so that there is
All right.
inclusivity in terms of development and also in terms of appointments.
Dismas?
Well, in
Final
my view,
words.
Raila was first among equals. Out of all those 5 candidates, anybody would have carried the mantle, but Raila was first among equals. Number 2, Raila is the father of democracy in Kenya. He has earned his place in our history. And anybody who wishes Raila away at this stage, Raila is like Amalize the cat, the one you read in Things Fall Apart. He can easily go back to his private chambers and recalibrate his political space, and you find him back in 2022 with even a bigger force. So not a single politician in Kenya today should go to bed saying that for Raila it's a wrap. In any event, we don't know whether or not NASA is going to the Supreme Court, whether or not they're going to have a case. There may be a chance that in the next 3 or 4 weeks we're having a nullification that we are going for another presidential election. So we can't assume that everything is cast in iron. But assuming that there's no nullification, the biggest challenge for President Kenyatta today, because he's not going to seek for anybody's vote again, is to work on national inclusivity and economic disparities in Kenya. That will be his biggest challenge. On the issue he speaks about development agenda, nimwaletea barabara na kadhalika, that one is what a president is supposed to do. So he shouldn't even be talking about it. He should now go the extra mile and heal the nation, because the nation is bleeding. All the people who voted for Raila Odinga believe that their victory was stolen. So he must be proactive. He said he's extending an olive branch to Raila Odinga, but now the speech must be followed by action so that he can assist Kenyans manage their expectations and manage their frustrations.
All right.
So that moving forward, everybody feels that he is part of Kenya. We don't want anybody, when they see the president making a speech, they start scratching their head saying, I'm not part of this system, I've been excluded.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Dismas Mokua, Mutinda Kavemba, Hezbon Owila, and Professor Eritumbo. Many thanks for such a wonderful conversation this morning. Of course, that is where we leave it on the discussion. This Sunday morning, we are talking about what just has been happening in the last 1 week, a post-mortem, if you like, of the general election that Kenya had on August 8th, that is on Tuesday. Of course, there are things that are continuing. The National Super Alliance has disputed the election results. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission has declared President Uhuru Kenyatta has been elected again for a second term in office. Of course, we shall continue to follow up the post-election procedures that continue after that, and we shall be keeping an eye on everything for you to make sure we give you the most qualified analysis. Many thanks for joining us. I'm Ben Kitili. Thanks for watching.